Bergen Community College presents Bergen Bulldog Radio on FiOS Channel 26. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Bergen Community College.
Welcome to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on the YouTube Bergen Bulldog Radio channel and on Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. The Bergen Bulldog Podcast Show is a weekly compilation produced by the students of the podcasting class on the Paramus campus of Bergen Community College. Each week, we will feature several podcasts created and produced by Bergen Bulldog Radio students. The topics vary, and we hope you will find them informative and entertaining. This week's program features the third episode from 5 podcasting students from the spring 2026 semester. So let's get on with the show.
I'm Aiden Moreno, and you're listening to Openly Mindful, the only show with no experts, no agenda, just good old-fashioned one-on-one discussions. Join me as I interview guests and try to understand their perspectives just a little bit better. I had like a coffee and I'm like a little bit jittery.
Oh no.
I know, but
Yeah.
welcome back. This is our third episode. My third episode. I have another guest, another fantastic guest, my friend from.
Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome. Actually, first time.
Yes,
first time here.
First time.
Welcoming the audience. But would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Baz. We're gonna talk about ADHD. So like I'm Aiden's friend, and we met through class.
Mhm.
And yeah, I have a ADHD diagnosis, and we're here because we had a discussion the other day, just kind of off the cuff,
Yeah.
about ADHD, and now we're here.
Now we're here. So let's start off. I mean, let's not limit ourselves to ADHD.
Yeah, sure.
Mental health in general, you know.
Right.
When did you first realize you might have ADHD, and what was like that moment like? Do you remember?
Yeah. I don't know. For like mental health, it's kind of like a big accumulation of a bunch of little events, I feel like, for ADHD especially, and the way I have it. But like when my mental health first started becoming something like I had to notice, I would say it was like March of 2020, you know, when like COVID was
Oh yeah.
like a thing. I actually didn't know that I had ADHD for sure until I was 19.
So fairly recently.
Fairly recently, yeah. I got diagnosed as an adult, and it would have been nice to get diagnosed earlier, and I had suspicions, you know.
Yeah.
But
Do you think a lot of like kids get
missed?
because
Yeah,
they're
for sure.
kids are just bundles of energy, you know, they run around.
It's a total.
or even misdiagnosed.
That happens a lot too. And I think it's interesting because I grew up as a girl. I was socialized as a girl. And with girls especially, you can read online. There's a ton of studies where it says, like, girls tend to get missed in childhood, and then only when, like, things happen in adulthood, like their workload becomes too heavy, like, or
Really?
they start having children, or, you know, like, their responsibilities become too much to mask. Like, masking is a term that, you know, is about like mental health in general, but
Yeah.
especially with like ADHD or autism, or you're trying to like seem normal or like seem as close to neurotypical as possible,
Yeah.
so like not neurodivergent, and it expends a lot of energy. So you know, when you were saying about like little kids and how they run around and
Yeah.
you can't necessarily tell, oh, is this like a hyperactive kid with ADHD, or is this just a kid
A
being a
kid.
kid? It's hard to tell because
Mhm.
ADHD isn't always hyperactive. There's
Yeah.
also like only in recent years, like decades, have we, you know, started categorizing ADHD as like a 3-type thing.
Yeah. Well, elaborate. What do you mean by 3 types?
Yeah, so in the DSM-5, or like the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, that's like the Bible of psychiatry,
Mhm.
right? And the 5th edition, which is the most recent and the one that we currently use, they've kind of separated ADHD into 3 categories. Like you can have 3 subtypes. There's the inattentive type, like the primarily inattentive. So girls tend to have that.
Really?
Yeah. And that kind of goes under the radar. And then there's the, the one you're really familiar with, the one you think of when you think of ADHD, the primarily hyperactive and impulsive type. That's like the, you think of the young boy.
Jumping around.
Yeah, jumping around, can't sit
stay
still, yelling or whatever, making a, ruckus in class. And then you've got the combined type, which is the best of both worlds, which I say sarcastically.
The hybrid.
Yeah, it's just like you kind of got to struggle with both. And I have that one. And it, really kind of depends on the situation you're in or what stage in your life you're in or like what kind of stressors you're undergoing or, how your health is, what's going on. That kind of affects what presentation happens at what time. But, like I was saying, girls in schools, like young kids, like the inattentive type really kind of shows up as daydreaming. And like you can't really necessarily focus and you're kind of just like, you're called a space cadet. You're in another world.
Mine's wandering.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to learn some algebra or something.
Yeah. And it's much harder to kind of detect that kind of ADHD because it's not flashy. And you really need to like be attuned to a child and pay attention. And the child, is not necessarily going to think, oh, this is ADHD. Like most people, that's not their first thought. Their first thought, especially when it's a young girl, is, oh, this is a hormonal kid. Or, oh, this is, an anxious kid. Or, oh, this is a kid with depression. Or, some like more like first comes to mind mental health disorder or illness that you think of. So
speaking of depression, how is there a way they interlink?
Oh, for sure. There's this thing in healthcare, but in the context of mental health, it's called comorbidity or like coexisting disorders. And depression and ADHD and anxiety, the big three. They have a real statistical overlap. It's also interesting because autism and ADHD, they've got a big overlap too. There's also a bipolar in ADHD. There's just so many things. ADHD does statistically put you at risk for a whole host of other problems, substance use disorder. It's kind of like the way that the brain is wired to like get motivated or to think. It really does open up that kind of that link.
So what would you say, I mean, we were talking about this the other day, actually, about school and how, it's funny enough, we bonded through the fact that our professor, and we're not going to name any names, because I love this professor. Actually, he's a great professor.
Great professor. Very passionate.
Let's not start any enemies, but we were bonding over the fact how we didn't really particularly agree with his means of assigning homework.
Yeah.
Because he refuses to use, not refuses, but he prefers to students email their homework instead of using Canvas, the built-in submission process through Canvas, which arguably is easier.
Yeah, it's more streamlined.
And we were talking about how we were falling behind in that class, and that even though he gives us a long time to do these assignments, like a week, he'll give us a week or two to do these assignments. We end up, it's actually less helpful. You want to talk about that? How about we talk about it?
So when we talk about ADHD, the name is really horrible. The name it's short for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but that's not the actual issue that's at the root of ADHD symptoms, which looks like, oh, we can't focus, oh, we can't, move around, we're hyperactive, whatever. The issue is a focusing of attention and a whole host of skills called executive functioning skills. So when we're having trouble with something like, getting started on a task, like task initiation, or breaking a task up into pieces, or understanding and planning ahead of time how much time we're going to need for a certain task, or, what is this task even going to entail? Do I have to research on different websites? Do I have to, watch this video? What's that going to look like? Like that planning ahead, that understanding, all this stuff, which typically comes pretty naturally to a neurotypical person. We get told, like, as an ADHDer, why can't you just do this? This is so easy.
Yeah.
And so when an assignment is kind of given with very little structure and you're not, being really directed on what exactly you are being
Mm-hmm.
like assessed on, or what exactly
Vague
is,
assignments.
yeah, just like that kind of just is like a breeding ground for a bunch of like ADHD issues. Like you have trouble starting because you can't define the task very
Yeah.
easily, and if you don't, understand like how much time this task is gonna take,
Yeah.
then it's of course much harder to plan your day around it or do other
Yeah.
things.
And we're talking about how like it's the little things like
Yeah.
Canvas. I mean, like emails is just another head of a headache because it's
Mhm.
just like you get everyone's
Yeah,
email
you
is
gotta, yeah.
inbox is flooded and
Yes.
you don't want to search through it, and sending emails could be sometimes for a regular person be a task you don't even think about, but
Right.
like sending an email, at least from my experience, or
It
you
feels
may
like I'm like my ancestor, like my human ancestor, and I'm fighting a tiger.
yeah
Like, that's exactly what it feels
send an
like.
email, yeah,
Like
it really
my
is that
nervous
deep.
system really just goes.
No,
you
yeah,
know?
it really is that deep.
Yeah.
But
Because there's so much that goes into writing an email. You gotta, be courteous. You can't
be
sound
courteous.
rude.
Can't be rude.
I have this.
Good morning. Good
Yeah,
morning.
yeah. Good morning. Sincerely, best regards,
Um,
warm regards. It's like a perfectionism thing too.
Yeah. So personally, in your journey, have you tried things like medication, therapy, or even coaching? And what was that like for you?
Yeah. I think I kind of want to backtrack even a little bit further
Go.
back.
Yeah.
Not even just medication therapy or coaching. Sometimes just having a diagnosis is just such like a relief.
Mhm.
With ADHD, and especially if you go undiagnosed for a long time, there's a lot of shame because you don't understand why things are so much harder for you, and you can kind of be like, look around, compare yourself, and be like, this seems like it's really easy for everyone else,
Mhm.
and why is putting away my laundry, like, it feels like I have to like
Rest.
summon all of my willpower to
Yeah,
do this
yeah.
one thing. So to get medication, you have to have an official diagnosis, and just having that diagnosis can feel like
How's
such a
that
relief.
process come like?
Like the diagnosis process.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was a lot less hoops than it might normally be. Like as a child, the diagnosis process obviously involves parents and
Mhm.
usually teachers, and can involve like IQ testing or like a brain scan. There's a whole bunch of different stuff, but so it's not just like we're gonna diagnose this kid with ADHD off like the first appointment so we can like put them on Adderall.
Mhm.
That's not what's happening.
Mhm.
Diagnosis is typically a much lengthier process. But for me as an adult, I went to like a nurse practitioner over telehealth, and I kind of described like what my entire high school experience was like.
Mhm.
Starting from like that March 2020 COVID thing, and
I think a lot of people
yeah.
realize their mental health during that time frame.
For sure, lots of
Being a-
structure just kind of gone. No
being
social net.
no social net and being alone with your thoughts for like
Yeah.
a large
Yeah.
period of time. I mean,
Yeah.
COVID was no joke, and I think a lot of people finally took. At least my mom, she finally took mental health seriously
Yeah,
during
because
that period.
you're home and your parents are just seeing it.
You're
Like they're
seeing-
seeing
Yeah.
you struggling,
Mhm.
like with their own eyes.
I think everyone like got a little depressed during that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, for sure. Like, and that's corroborated by the research and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we? I'm talking about diagnosis.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
My
The
experience.
process and
Yeah,
your
the process.
experience, please.
Yeah, I first tried to get diagnosed, through a different, nurse practitioner, and for some reason that specific health care, like that mental health organization or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that office had a policy where they just didn't diagnose ADHD. They referred out to like a more comprehensive place. But in my case, when I was 19, I went to this, NP, and I was like, he made the judgment that based on everything that he had like available to him,
Mm-hmm.
and like the experience I was describing, it was so severe that it was like, I don't think it's not ADHD, because I already had a bunch of other
Yeah.
diagnoses at that point. And it was like, okay, what you're describing here, like the struggles you're describing, sound much more like ADHD than anything else, because everything else is being either medicated and treated at this point, and you're like still struggling with the same things. Like we've ruled out
Mhm.
other things, or like it's just like
For you, what was your biggest symptom? Was it
Symptom.
like procrastination or?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of shame and avoidance and like I don't know where to start. I would like really fall behind in school a lot, especially during COVID. 'Cause again, like once you fall behind it's much harder to get back on top of the snowball once it
Yeah.
starts rolling.
It's like you just keep digging, not even digging yourself deeper. You just keep falling. You keep
Yeah.
rolling down.
Yeah, like it's like a Sisyphean task to,
Mhm.
kind of get back on track when you're, like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, typically they give you a survey and it's like you got to score like a 4 out of 6 on like the initial like 6 questions. I don't know if you've ever taken like a PHQ-9 or like when they assess you for depression or anxiety, they ask you like these questions like over the last 2 weeks, typically this is how they're worded. Have you experienced like this symptom and how often or how many days, like more than half the days, or has it like really affected your life and made it really difficult to like do work and school and all this stuff? But for me, I didn't have to get any like brain scans or anything like that just because it wasn't like we ruled out a bunch of other things and we were like, okay, yeah, this sounds much more like ADHD than anything else because you're already trying to fix everything else.
Yeah. And finally, what advice would you give someone who thinks they might have ADHD, and where can people go if they want to learn more to get help about it?
I think for somebody who suspects they might have ADHD, the main thing that I want to tell you is that you're not alone. You are so far from alone. Like there are so many people out there with ADHD, undiagnosed, self-diagnosed, diagnosed really late in life, early in life. It's like there's a whole tribe of people whose brains work very like the same as yours.
Yeah.
And you're not broken. Like I want to validate any struggles that you have and trying to fit in, socializing, work, family life. There's so much that the world does not understand about ADHD. And if you don't even understand yourself, you don't even have like ADHD as an explanation to kind of validate this is why I'm struggling this way.
Yeah.
You've probably spent your entire life thinking you're broken, that you're lazy, a failure, something's wrong with you per se. But it's not. It's the way that it's hard to function in this society and succeed in a society that just doesn't reward how our brains are motivated and how we see the world necessarily. Like it's not hopeless, but it is much harder.
Yeah.
You need a lot more conscious effort and support to perform in ways that your neurotypical peers might have just been able to be like, hey, why is this so hard for you? Like it's an invisible struggle a lot of the time,
Yeah.
There's no like big red flag painted over your forehead that says, I have ADHD, please be nice to me.
Yeah. It's
it just turns into like kind of a lifetime of shame and little things.
It's a process.
Yeah,
Discovering
it's
yourself.
definitely a process.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming out, and thank you for helping me become more openly mindful.
Still lots more to come here on the podcast show on Bergen Bulldog Radio. This is Bergen Bulldog Radio from Bergen Community College on YouTube and Torch TV, Files Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Nick's Pit Stop, where I recap the episodes of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 18. I just want to say before we start that I'm not a drag queen, but all my opinions are the correct ones, so let's go. We are currently at the top 6 of the competition in this episode. I'm going to be covering episode 13, the Karen Improv Challenge. I just want to say Jane Don't finally lost her winning streak last episode. Horrible, sad, and there's a lot with Jane this episode. We'll get to it. But she's finally off her, I think it was 10 or 11 episode winning streak. She broke the record for win streak on Drag Race. Yeah, I just gotta mention that because I did not cover the last episode. And also, if I have time at the end, I'm going to talk about the Drag Race movie that's coming out, Stop That Train, featuring a bunch of Drag Race girls. I'll get to that if I have time. So this episode, they start off with the mini challenge. They have the puppet mini challenge, which I don't think they've done the past few years. I mean, I don't really remember But I always like the puppet mini challenge because everybody loves puppets. Like we all know it. All Stars 2 season 5, like those are the best puppet challenges, and those are the ones I remember. And this one was bad. It was brutal. Everyone did bad. This episode as a whole, I'm very hit or miss on. Um, but the puppet challenge was not good. I'll go through everyone's performances, but the first thing I wrote was I miss All Stars 2. They all did so bad. So first we had Darlene Mitchell. She had a Mikey Meeks doll. She made me cringe so bad. She literally just ran out of jokes. She was just like standing there like laughing, like waiting for everyone's approval. That's like my worst nightmare on Drag Race, is to be like so caught up in the moment that you're just sitting there like smiling, like giggling, like you don't know what to do. Like that really hurt me. And this challenge was not great. Everyone, I'm gonna spoil it. Everyone did bad in the puppet challenge, but Darlene was so awkward. Jane Don't said she's looking around. She's looking around like a lost child at the mall, which is a great way to describe it. She was just kind of sitting there, looking at everyone for approval for her bad jokes. Next, we have Jane Don't. She had the Nini Coco doll. I thought she was pretty funny. Everyone was kind of staring, like not laughing at her. Honestly, like tough crowd. Like I don't know. I thought she had some pretty good jokes, but they clearly disagree, and that's not the only time that people are going to disagree with me on my opinions during this episode. But we'll get to that. So then next we had Juicy Love Dion with the Jane Don't doll. She literally was on screen for 5 seconds. I didn't have enough time to write anything. She actually they give her 0 screen time. They're really like flopping Juicy this season, and it's kind of sad because I was excited for Juicy, and I think she did pretty good early season, but now she's just like, I don't know, they kind of like forgetting about her. And I think they're really setting her up for All Stars. I think that's kind of the point of Juicy this season, because they keep giving her the critique like, you're not giving personality, you're not, show us who you really are. And I think they're just setting her up to have an All Stars comeback. But regardless, they didn't even show her in the mini challenge at all. So next we had Mikey Meeks with the Juicy Love Dion doll. I wrote not funny or anything special. They were all awkward. They were all forgettable too. Honestly, when I was writing the script, like my little notes for this, I completely forgot that they did this mini challenge because it was just so forgettable and boring. And then Nini Coco had the Darlene Mitchell doll. I do remember that the doll did look a lot like Darlene, and that was like the best part. Was that the doll looked like Darlene, but it also was not funny. Like it really was not. It was not it. And then they had the little bit of the crew dancing, and I thought that was cute. But yeah, the mini challenge was kind of pointless. It's sad because I like the puppet mini challenge. I think it's cute, but it was just not it. So now I'm going to go over the main challenge, which was Karen's Gone Wild, and the runway, which was from wholesome to fulsome. So I have to preface this by like saying the nature of the runway is inappropriate. So I'm not going to be able to say if they really like encapsulated the theme, and I'm not going to be able to talk about some of the runways that much. So I'll let you do your own research on fulsome. But you do have to know that they start with one outfit that is wholesome, and they again end with an outfit that's inappropriate. And that's about the most I can say, but I will talk about the outfits because they were pretty good. First we had Juicy Love Dion. She was given the traffic stop Karen. Oh, so the improv challenge, the Karen improv challenge, is the queens are tasked as being a Karen, with their improv partner as RuPaul. So, and I think that already is not a great idea because I don't think RuPaul should be an improv partner in a challenge where she's the judge. Like, because she can very much just do bad and not give them stuff and like put them in the bottom. And I think that's what happened this episode, but we'll get to it. I don't know. I don't love the idea. I do think that the Karen thing is funny, but I don't love that RuPaul's involved in the challenge like that directly. So Juicy Love Dion was given I think they picked. She was traffic stop Karen. They all agreed. I thought that was funny. They all agreed on their roles right away. It's like the first time that's ever happened, especially with Nini, who's like been shown to be indecisive the whole time, where she's like, maybe. No, they picked right away. It was great. Finally, they can all agree on something. Sorry, Juicy Love Dion, traffic stop Karen. I thought she was really funny. I really liked the character that she did. She was supposed to be like, because her whole thing is that she's like Latina, so she had like the Latina Karen. I thought it was funny. I liked when she like fell over the divider right in the beginning. That was a good way to start it off. And also like, I was just thinking the whole point of this is that RuPaul is parked in a spot that's supposed to be Juicy's spot, but like RuPaul's fully parked in like over 3 spots, so she's definitely the one in the wrong here. But I like Juicy's performance. I like that she did the classic Karen of I'm gonna call my husband, but she said her husband's name. And then RuPaul said I'm gonna call Joe Anderson, and I literally died. I was like, why are we referencing Joe Anderson in the Big 26? That was really funny. I was really happy when RuPaul did that. I was like, thank you for making me laugh because this challenge is gonna be a little harsh. I liked her facial expressions, and I thought the little insurance fraud bit where she like walks in front of the car and like pretends to get hit was funny. That's a very Karen thing to do. I like Juicy in this challenge. And her runway was like an Alice in Wonderland type concept where she started off in the Alice dress and then turned into more of like a Cheshire Cat type thing. I liked it. I really liked the dress in the beginning. I liked the one Alice in Wonderland. I like Alice in Wonderland a lot. So I liked this dress. I liked her little props. The reveal was cool. I don't love the fit of like the second, like the post reveal outfit, but that's like nitpicking. That's very splitting hairs. Like it's good. Juicy was pretty good this episode. Definitely not extraordinary, but I did like her outfit. I did like her performance. Next up, we have Darlene Mitchell as shoplifting Karen. So this one is a little weird because Darlene, it was very Darlene. Like when we go back to the roast, which was my last episode that I covered, Darlene just started going over the top and doing all these props and like just really sending it over like what's even happening. And that's definitely what happened in this challenge. And I don't think Darlene was very Karen. Like they didn't really critique her for that. I think she was like funny. Like she was having too much fun, which is something that you don't want to give a critique for. But on this show, like they really pick and choose when they want to give critiques, and I really don't think Darlene Mitchell was giving Karen. Like she really wasn't. And she was very nice. That was the issue. But I thought she was funny and she was entertaining, which I guess is the point. I liked when she was screaming into her phone. It's a very Karen thing to do. And RuPaul was really giving her a lot. This is where I think that RuPaul, this and one later, well, we'll get to, I really don't think RuPaul should be involved. I just like, she was giving Darlene a lot of stuff. She was like dancing and she was giving a lot for Darlene. And it ended up just kind of divulging into madness. And I wrote, what is even going on anymore? Because with Darlene, that's usually what happens. And her runway, I can't really talk about. I think the concept is kind of gross. I have to really pick and choose my words here. I liked it pre-reveal. And I do think it was kind of gross, but it did fit the category. And it's not bad. I didn't love it. Not my favorite Darlene runway, but it is very Darlene drag. Like, yeah, I liked the pre-reveal more than the post-reveal. And I'm going to have to say, go look that one up yourself because I can't really talk about it. So Mikey Meeks was Traffic Stop Karen. I liked when she started pressing all the buttons in her car instead of opening the window. I thought that was funny. I liked when RuPaul said, I think that was Drew Barrymore, because calling back to her Snatch Game performance, which is really what Mikey's like been known for at this point. Like she was on the Drew Barrymore show, I think more than once now, which is really funny. And it also just started to go off the rails towards the end, like Darlene's, which like, I don't love when that, I mean, it's improv. So like, you really don't know where it's going to go. And I thought, I don't know, I didn't really love Mikey's performance. I thought she was like, okay. But we're going to see later that my critiques do not align with the general consensus and the judges for this episode. That's going to be a running theme this episode. I really did love her runway, though. She probably had the best runway of the night. I really liked Nini's also. We'll get to that. But I really love the post-reveal of this runway. I thought the pre-reveal was okay. I love the wig. She had like a flower wig. I thought it was beautiful. It was really, really cool. I really liked the spikes coming out of her hips. I really liked the whip thing that she had. Very cool runway. Probably one of my favorite runways of the season, honestly. So now we have Jane Don't, late for her flight Karen. I thought Jane really played this character. She really played into the Karen. She had the voice. She was really going into it. And I don't know. RuPaul was not giving her anything. I've seen people been like, oh, when you do improv, it's always say yes, say yes. That's the goal. You're supposed to say yes and. That's what it is. Yes and. And RuPaul was really not giving her much this episode. It was really like, I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to defend Nini too much, or trying to defend Jane too much, but I feel like RuPaul was giving her nothing. And although I do not love this runway, I am going to defend Jane Don't anyway. I do think the runway was boring. She definitely looked wholesome. Like it was wholesome to fulsome. And the pre-reveal, she was wearing full coverage out, like full gown with a little candle. I thought the candle was cool. I liked what she did with the wax at the end. Her post-reveal was okay. It was fine compared to Nini or Mikey. Nothing crazy. But she also wore this red necklace that she's worn for the past 3 episodes. I think we should stop doing that. But on to Nini Coco. Nini Coco was the HOA, Homeowner Association Karen. I thought she was by far the best of the night. I'm not going to lie. I really liked her improv performance. I thought she was really funny. She was really giving me Karen. I really liked her accent. I thought she was really selling it. I was laughing the whole time. After watching this, I was like, okay, Jane and Nini were the best. That's what I thought. But we'll see why they disagree. And her runway was really cool. I mean, like, how could you not think that this is an amazing concept? She was literally the Statue of Liberty. I like how she goes from the bronze Statue of Liberty to the blue. She oxidized on the runway. Very expected from Nini. I liked the little drips of bronze on her. I thought this was a really, really cool runway. But let's get to the critiques. So we have Darlene and Juicy are safe, and the win is given to Mikey. I've heard people agree with this, so I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to knock Mikey off her high horse here. I've heard people say that she deserved it. I'm not an improv expert. Whatever. Which leaves Jane Don't and Nini Coco in the bottom. These are my two favorite queens of the season. Like, either way, I'm going to be upset. There's one person, if Jane Don't was the one to go home, I'd be very upset. And let's get into the lip sync. They lip sync to Garden of Eden, which is off of Lady Gaga's Mayhem, the new album. And honestly, Nini did a great job. And it makes me, as much as I want to rip my heart out saying that, like, Nini did an amazing job in this lip sync. She did an entire backflip on the stage. Like, and I think Jane did good. I think Jane did good enough to where this should have been a double save. But the judges did not agree. And Jane Don't was sent home this episode. After breaking the streak for the highest number of consecutive high placements, after she's now the first queen to have 3 wins and be sent home, not make it to the finale, Jane Don't was sent home. And congrats, Mikey, for the win. Like, I mean, Mikey's going to win the season at this point. I don't really know what to say about this. Like, her exit, she literally walked up. She didn't even know what to say. In the confessional, she was like, yeah, this just sucks. And, like, it does. Like, I don't even want to watch the season. Why did we put her in the top for 11 straight episodes or 10 straight episodes just to send her home? And there were more episodes she could have won, too. That's what I was thinking, is they're not giving her too many wins because they don't want her to be the obvious front runner and dominate. But just to send her home, like, oh my gosh, this really makes me sad that the production chose to do this. Like, are we serious? I get the Mikey fans are happy. I like Nini too. I like Mikey, I like Nini, I like Darlene, and I like Juicy. And this is causing a lot of Juicy hate because people are like, Jane Don't went home before Juicy. Like, we can't hate on Juicy for not being sent home. But the fact that Jane, like, it just is, it's brutal. It's really brutal. And it makes me really sad. I don't even want to continue the season, honestly. It feels so rigged. And did she do not great in the challenge? Yeah. And did she not do great in the runway? Yeah. But we've saved people for worse. Like, oh my God, Candy Muse, I'm not ready for you to go. Like, we could have just done that for Jane. She did. People are now saying that there's a curse. If you wear red, you're going to be sent home because her, Susie 2, oh my gosh, I can't even with Susie 2, and Morphine were the top, like the last 3 girls to get eliminated before the end, and they were wearing red. So it's a new curse, new Drag Race curse. And yeah, this was just a brutal episode, honestly. I thought it was really funny that Mikey won tickets to the movie also. I do want to mention that. But this was a really brutal, hard episode for me to watch. I'm not going to want to continue watching this season, but I will. And my next episode, I'm not going to be able to finish with the finale, so I'm going to talk about my predictions for the finale. But that is all I have for today, and thank you for tuning into Nick's Pit Stop, and enjoy the season.
You're listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on YouTube and Torch TV, Files Channel 26, in Bergen County, New Jersey. And now, back to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Gift for Gab, a podcast all about comic book canon and media that I think is worth talking about. It's Nate Enriquez on the mic, happy to be talking with you guys. Now today's episode is going to be all about one of Marvel's biggest heroes in more ways than one. We're talking about Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. Now Hulk is my favorite character in Marvel, along with Juggernaut. But I do got to say, he's a lot more complicated than Juggy. And just as a forewarning, this podcast will include some darker topics like domestic violence because Bruce's history is not one for the faint of heart. I'm also going to be doing some surface level discussion of Bruce Banner's DID, or dissociative identity disorder. I'm going to try my best to use the correct terminology and give the topic that the respect it deserves, as it really is something you have to talk about when we're talking about Bruce Banner and the Hulk system. Now, without any further ado, let's get right into it. So I want to talk. This episode is going to really be about the history of Hulk more than anything, because he has a long history. So his first comic was all the way back in May of 1962, and he started off. Well, his origins are different. Because the first comic, obviously it shows the Hulk, but there's so much more that goes on before that, and I think that's the meat and potatoes of what I'm going to go into today, is his story really before he becomes the Hulk, because I think that is one of the most compelling parts about his character. Now, he was born to Dr. Brian Banner, and his father was, not a good person, abusive, alcoholic. His mother loved him very much, but they were both pretty much at the mercy of their husband, of their father and her husband. Brian Banner was exposed to gamma radiation during an experiment because he was also a well-known scientist that specialized in gamma and atomic energy, like Bruce was. And that made him believe that his DNA was altered. So when Bruce was born, he believed him to basically be a monster, even though Bruce was pretty much just a normal child. And, his mom tried to defend Bruce as often as she could, but it really didn't end up helping very much. And his parents left him alone a lot when they went to important social events, because his father was very, very famous in the field of science he was majoring in. So it led to Bruce kind of resenting his parents, more so his father than his mother. And even when you'd think he'd have a respite from his abusive father, he was in the care of an abusive nanny when his parents were out. So he really never had a break. And due to this continuing trauma, his first ever alter manifested, which was Hulk, or the Child Hulk, which is the version of Hulk that is seen most in Marvel media, that originally started and manifested as Bruce's imaginary friend. Now, that brings me to his second alter, which manifests not much after, when Bruce would watch old mob movies as a kid. And that birthed Joe Fixit, which is an alter that represents what Bruce imagined an adult would be like. He's sleazy, he's underhanded, but he's very cunning. And despite Bruce going through his childhood with them not being around a lot, his parents, when they were around, particularly his father, because his mother did want the best for him, his father basically made his life as difficult as possible. And this culminated, or it hit its climax, when his mother tried to take Bruce and leave her husband and his father. And that ended in Brian killing Bruce's mother in front of his own eyes when they tried to leave. And then after that, he forced Bruce to lie during the court trial that he didn't do it. And so the charges got dropped, but then he gets caught gloating about, basically bullying his son into lying, and then is found guilty via insanity, and then he's sent to a psych ward. And then his father is out of his life for a while, and then he's consequently raised by his aunt, where he really finds his first real friend that's not an imaginary friend in Jennifer Walters, which is his cousin, and as many of you may know, is also She-Hulk. So he properly develops DID from this trauma. And several alters are created over time. The Savage / Child Hulk, which is the Hulk that pretty much everybody knows. Joe Fixit, which is the gray one that usually wears the suits. You have the Devil or Immortal Hulk, which is my favorite version of him, and I'll get to that later. You have Professor Hulk. You have all these different alters. And then in college, he actually went to the same college that Tony Stark did, Iron Man. And they actually started off as pretty heated rivals, but they ended up becoming respected friends. They kind of put apart their differences, and they realized that both of them were like prodigal geniuses, so they ended up being pretty good friends. So after that, after college, Bruce ends up working for the government. In this time, his father returns from the psych ward, and he's quote unquote cured, but that turns out to be a lie. Bruce takes him in because the ward says he's cured. His father seems remorseful and is just asking for a chance to be put back in Bruce's life. And Bruce says, okay, against his better judgment. He says, okay. And he lets his father back into his life. And this ends up being a huge mistake because when Bruce goes to visit his mother's grave, his father follows him. And it turns out that he was not as cured as originally thought. And they end up fighting. And at the climax, Bruce ends up killing his dad at the foot of his mother's grave. And it was raining pretty heavily. So, after he leaves, the rain pretty much washes away all the evidence, and Bruce never gets in trouble for his father's death. It was initially painted in the comics to be an accident, but later on, Bruce has come to imply that it was not an accident, and he killed his father on purpose. Regardless, he blocked that memory from his head for a really long time, and he basically forced himself to believe that his father left after he fought him off. And then Bruce becomes a gamma physicist after college, and once he starts working for the government, he wants to change the world for the better. But he has zero money to do so, so he works for the government, and he takes on this government project to build a gamma bomb in order to get funding to do so. Now, he builds this gamma bomb, and on the day of testing, a young Rick Jones, who would end up being Bruce's best friend, he's sent into the site by his friends, quote-unquote friends, not really, on a dare, because what friends would send you into a live test zone with a gamma bomb? So Bruce sees him and basically leaves the comfort of the safety bunker that he was in to watch the test, and he saves him. But in doing so, he gets caught in the blast. And on that day, Bruce Banner dies. But the intense concentration of gamma opens a green door, which sounds complicated, but it's basically a gateway between Earth and this place called the Below Place, which is basically the domain that all people like Hulk, all people that get transformed from gamma, so like She-Hulk, Hulk, Abomination, that's where they all go when they die to eventually be resurrected. And the Hulk is born when Bruce goes through the green door. Bruce goes into the green door, he comes back out, and Hulk is in his place. And he was actually gray in his first comic instead of green, which was not intended. And that turned into a plot point later on with characters like Joe Fixit because he's gray. And that brings me to why I like Hulk. I mean, Bruce Banner, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting and complex characters that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby ever created. He is amazing. He has some of the most compelling comics ever written. I can just throw some out there. Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing, masterpiece, and in my opinion, the best piece of Hulk literature that will ever exist and exists currently. You have Planet Hulk and World War Hulk by Greg Pak, fantastic series. The newest Incredible Hulk series by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and now the Infernal Hulk as well by PKJ, Philip Kennedy Johnson. Both are amazing. A bit controversial, but I really like them. And you know what? He's a really tragic character. And I think that in itself is very compelling because Marvel has a penchant for having these fantastic tragic characters. You look at characters like Spider-Man, his background is very sad with the way his uncle died. Wolverine, he was experimented on, and he's lived for however many centuries. He basically doesn't age, and he does, but very slowly. So he's lived countless centuries. Mystique, all the mutants, all the mutants have very sad backstories. But I think Hulk's is just a glaring exception because of how tremendously traumatic his childhood was, and how that basically fueled his dissociative identity disorder and basically created the Hulk system. And I think Immortal Hulk does it the best in kind of, expanding on the Hulk system and all the different alters that Bruce Banner has, and basically giving them their own showcase. Especially Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk is a very special alter to me. Immortal Hulk is basically, he was originally thought to be very evil. He was originally thought to be this sinister, evil creature that wanted nothing but the worst for everybody. But he actually represents the father that Bruce never had, and Bruce wished that he had. And he takes on a nightmarish, reptilian, draconic appearance because that's how Bruce sees the father figure in his mind, as something nightmarish and something ghoulish, akin to what Brian Banner basically inflicted on his son throughout his childhood. And I think, I mean, that's just amazing character design. But Immortal Hulk is truly one of the greatest creations, I think, that has come out of Bruce's dissociative identity disorder in the comics. He he truly is somebody that wants the best for Bruce, and we see that in the 50 issues of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk from 2018. Fantastic. Please read it. Please read it. Please read it. It is the greatest a piece of Hulk literature I've ever seen, and it really is something that I want to kind of hone in on a bit, because I think this is something that is a really big chunk of his character. So Immortal Hulk is basically Bruce's father figure, or the representation of his father figure. He wants the best for Bruce. He fights all sorts of people that would want to do harm to Bruce, namely the Avengers, because the Avengers and Hulk have never seen eye to eye. Hulk has not been on the Avengers for a very long time. And so when they come to blows, it's basically Immortal Hulk versus the cast of the Avengers, and they want to take him in and fight him. And, you know, they actually end up winning, because they use like basically a nuke on Hulk, and, you know, he doesn't die, but what it does is it basically like weakens him enough for them to basically ship him off. But when they ship him off, he obviously gets intercepted by the government, because the government wants Hulk just as badly as everybody else does. So he gets sent to some secret lab, and they want to experiment on him, and Immortal Hulk, this very smart and intelligent and cunning alter, breaks out, and he has like this. There's this great body horror in Immortal Hulk that is simply fantastic, and it's something that I think the character needs, because when you think about it, it is very grotesque. It is very grotesque to see what Immortal Hulk does in the comics. All that body horror, and I think it's great. I think it's great for Hulk. Hulk needs that body horror, because he is terrifying, very terrifying. You know, his bones are breaking when he's transforming. He's obviously in pain. And in the newest series, you know, the Hulk alter that doesn't really like him is making those transformations as painful as possible. But you know what? I've talked for quite a long time about Hulk. I think that's just about all the time I have. And I do want to say again, please read Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing, and the newest Hulk by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Infernal Hulk and whatnot. And that's been all from me. Thank you for listening to this episode of Gift for Gab. I'm Nate Henriquez. Thank you for listening.
Today, we're booting up our 56K modems and stumbling straight into the cursed bandwidth of 1999, a time when your mom picking up the phone could nuke your internet connection. And somehow, 3 film students disappearing in the woods felt disturbingly plausible. This is the Blair Witch Project, and calling it just a movie is like calling dial-up a mild inconvenience. Media scholar J.P. Talat calls it a unified narrative machine, which is a very academic way of saying this thing didn't just tell a story, it infected the internet with one. Because this wasn't just a film, it was a myth, a website, a rumor mill, and a low-grade, slow-loading collective panic attack. Welcome back to Narratives on the Move Inside Expanding Story Worlds. I'm your host, Lillian Venskis, and this podcast, where we chase stories across mediums, platforms, and occasionally cursed corners of the internet, is today being co-hosted, or at least I have a guest, with my son, Max. He's a returning guest.
Hi.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to unpack the Blair Witch Project, which hacked the early web. It blurred reality into urban legend, and it basically invented the, wait, is this real? Genre of online storytelling. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking DIY with mythology, early internet chaos, and what happens when a film decides the marketing is the narrative and commits to the bit so hard it rewires how audiences engage with fiction. All right, so welcome back, Max.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to get lost in the woods today?
Now I'm wishing we didn't move to the woods.
That is true. We do live in the woods now. All right, so I think most people know the legend, right? 3 students go missing, their footage is found, and a horror phenomenon is born. But the real project was the fusion of the film's narrative with its electronic marketing. All right, so to break that down, I need to talk about 2 heavy hitters in film theory, so bear with me. So the first is David Bordwell. He's the author of the textbook I use, who sees the film as a precursor to modern narrative complexity. And he argues its effectiveness relied on what we call paratext, things like the Curse of the Blair Witch mockumentary that was aired on the Sci-Fi Channel at the same time as the movie was coming out, and its official website, which built the mythology before audiences ever sat in a theater. I mean, that website was up a year before the film came out. Then there's J.P. Talat again, who frames the whole experience as a hypertext. Have you heard hypertext?
I'm pretty sure that only in context of like websites.
Exactly. In internet terms, that's a network of linked documents. No single master text, just fragments you navigate yourself, which is basically transmedia storytelling in its purest form, right?
Mhm.
Just, in this case, all digital online. So the story isn't just the 81 minutes on screen. It's police reports, Heather's handwritten diary entries, found artifacts. You have a whole web of stuff you had to click, read, and piece together like a slightly haunted detective. All right? And as Talat points out, that structure forces us to navigate the story the same way the characters navigated the Black Hills Forest, uncertain, disoriented, and probably making bad decisions. Right? All right, but what does this look like if you didn't live through the 1999 hoax, right? That's why I essentially asked you here, Max, because you are a full-on digital native, right?
Definitely.
Right? Born long after the film's release in a world where found footage is a genre itself and the internet is everywhere. And nothing online ever really feels that real. At least that's what I'm assuming you feel.
Yeah, definitely. You have a layer of everything is not to be trusted
Right.
online.
Okay, so, all right. So that kind of goes right back to this idea of could the Blair Witch Project even work the same way today?
I would say no.
Okay, yeah, and I think you're right because in 99, the internet was like the Wild West. Like when I can't explain to you without giggling a little bit how real it was. Like everything on the internet was true.
Just based on like the general like
Look on my
vibe that I
face?
get from not just the look on your face now, but from all that I've gathered in my
Mhm.
time learning with the early internet, you guys seem to just kind of have stars in your eyes.
Oh, it was the best thing ever.
Complete and total belief in whatever you read. I mean,
Yes.
and then granted, we still, I feel like, are learning today in schools based on your mistakes. Like the reason why we're told constantly don't believe everything you read on the
Yes.
internet is because
It's
you guys
because
kind of did.
Yeah, and the Blair Witch Project kind of proved that. So yes, I fell for this hoax for a hot minute. I mean, a hot minute. 5 minutes? All right. So first of all, yes, I fell for that hoax. So Max, you've seen the movie
Yes.
recently,
Yes.
right? What did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty. I mean, it was definitely the ending was definitely haunting. It stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a good ending.
It's definitely something that I feel that's not an uncommon sentiment.
Okay.
But I don't think it would hit. It would definitely hit harder if I had this extra context around it.
Right. Because here's the thing, and this is what made the use of the internet, so great as a marketing tool. You go in to watch this film, and you're watching the film about 3 missing documentarians, right? What the internet gave us was the backstory.
Yeah, you kind of don't get any of that.
Right. Now, if you remember, the ending is so haunting because Mike's standing in the corner. And
Exactly.
we know that from if you've only seen the movie, you only hear that one time when one person talks about the backstory of Rustin Parr. But if you were like me, you had read the entire backstory of Rustin Parr. So the minute you saw him in the corner, you freaked out because you knew exactly what was going on. And it made it so much scarier. And this was the first time that was ever done. Before this, the movie internets were essentially just the movie poster, or movie websites, I should say, was just the movie poster. It
Mhm.
wasn't interactive. The interactivity is what made it go crazy.
And I gotta say, I think this was an excellent choice for as kind of not only a time capsule, but for transmedia, because it is not in the traditional sense of a multi property kind of media.
Right.
It is a single property that is enhanced by its
Right.
transmedia
Aspects.
aspects.
And essentially, if you're talking about transmedia having to expand the narrative across platforms, you could argue that the Blair Witch isn't a true transmedia because most of what it's doing is more enhancing, which would be that paratext. But I'm going to
I'd still say
argue.
it counts.
Yeah, I'm going to argue with that because the depth of the story of Rustin Parr and the witch, the actual Blair, like you learn her backstory.
Yeah, you
from
don't know
there.
anything about the Blair Witch
don't-
in the actual movie. Because
Right.
as someone who has never really interacted with it,
Yeah.
I have no clue who she is.
You can't. The website is pretty much. You got to go to the Wayback Machine.
Wayback Machine.
Yeah, and most of it is defunct anyway. But so that's what it was. It was really spooky. How much it happened. So that was the big thing. Is that yes, the internet fooled us all, including myself. But you still like the movie.
I do very much like the movie, but I think that.
But you didn't
definitely
believe it was
would've-
real at any
No,
point.
not at all.
Right. I mean, have you ever seen anything on the internet that was a hoax that you fell for?
No, but definitely in the cultures that I grew up in, especially with in gaming, there's the legends,
Okay.
of things, and the one that I kind of wanted to bring up as it stood out to me immediately when you brought it up is everyone in gaming has heard about the Psycho Mantis boss fight from Metal Gear Solid.
Okay. Yeah.
As in this boss fight, the boss reads your memory card and basically
yeah.
talks to you through the screen.
Right.
And everyone who was a gamer this is slightly before I was born, back in PS1 era.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone who was playing a lot of video games during those days will tell you that this is like the scariest experience they've ever gone through. Everyone remembers Psycho Mantis.
Because it would say things like, "Oh, you like this game."
You like this game, and it would turn off your controller.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's spooky.
It would do scary stuff like that.
That's probably a little bit more than because I mean with the website of Blair Witch, that's more passive, right? I mean, I had to click through it, but I could just walk away.
Yeah,
It
but
wasn't
it interacts with you.
Yeah,
where-
that sounds even worse. That's pretty good though. I mean, I probably would have fallen for that too. It's a good thing I didn't play video games back then. All right, so I think I probably should start wrapping it up anyway, or I'm going to go over time. But I do want to mention that it did, the Blair Witch does have other media associated with it. It does have a Switch video game. I've never played it. It does have, it has escape rooms. Some towns you can find, escape rooms that are themed Blair Witch. And if anybody is familiar with the Hunt a Killer games that you can get sent to you in the mail, those are kind of what they sound like, hunting a killer. There's a couple of Blair Witch themed ones. I have one of them. And then, of course, aside from the website, what came out at the same time, I mentioned it before, were these mockumentaries that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. Now it's just called Sci-Fi. But that also was crazy because it really seemed so real. And then when the first movie came out on VHS, there was another mockumentary that you could only get at Blockbuster. So, again, it was like they were pushing this so hard. And, I feel like nowadays they use internet marketing for everything. So Blair Witch really started it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so, for my last episode of my season here, we're going to leave the forest and we're heading back into television with the television show Supernatural.
Ooh.
Now, this is a total switch now because this is a show where really we're talking about fandom, because fandom didn't just watch the story. They actually pushed back on it and reshaped it. And they helped redefine the relationship between creators and audiences. So until then, stay off sketchy websites and, stay out of the woods if you can. All right. Thank you, Max.
No problem.
All
Thank you.
The podcast show here on Bergen Bulldog Radio was engineered and edited by Nick Gonzalez. Our Bulldog mascot is Jameson. The next episodes will air beginning Friday, April 10th, 2026. The executive producer of Bergen Bulldog Radio is Professor Robert Williams. Thank you for joining us and see you next time on Bergen Bulldog Radio.